ಸಂಸಾರದಾವ ನಲಲಿದ ಲೋಕ ತ್ರನಾಯ ಕಾರುಣ್ಯ ಗಣ ಗಣತ್ವ ಸಂಸಾರದಾವ ನಲಲಿದ ಲೋಕ ತ್ರನಾಯ ಕಾರುಣ್ಯ ಗಣ ಗಣತ್ವ ಪ್ರಾಪ್ತಸ್ಯ ಕಲ್ಯಾಣ ಗುಣರ್ನವಸ್ಯ ವಂದೇ ಗುರೋ ಶ್ರೀ ಚರಣರವಿಂದ ಪ್ರಾಪ್ತಸ್ಯ ಕಲ್ಯಾಣ ಗುಣರ್ನವಸ್ಯ ವಂದೇ ಗುರೋ ಶ್ರೀ ಚರಣರವಿಂದ महाप्रभु कीर्तन नित्य गीता वादित्र मात्यान मनसोर सेना रोमांचकंपा शुतरंग बाजो वंदे गुरो श्री शरणरविंद श्री विग्रहाराधन नित्यानाना शृंगारतन मंदिर मर्जनादो युक्तस्य भक्तां शनियुञ्जतोऽपि वन्दे गुरो श्री चरणरविन्द चतुर्विधा श्री भगवत्प्रसादो स्वादान तृप्ता नरिभक्त शंग कृत्वैव तृप्तिं भजत सदैव वन्दे गुरो श्री चरणरविन्द श्रीराधिका माधवयोरपार माधुर्य लीला गुणरूप नाम्ना श्रीराधिका माधवयोरपार माधुर्य लीला गुणरूप नाम्ना प्रतीक्षण स्वादन लोलुपस्य वन्दे गुरो श्री चरणरविन्द निकुञ्जयो नो यति केले सिद्धाय ययालिभिर्युक्तेरपेक्षणीया तत्रातिदक्षादतिवल्लभस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दा साक्षादरित्वेदा समस्तशास्त्रे उक्तस्तथा भाव्यत एव सद्भिः किन्तु प्रभुर्या प्रिय एव तस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् यस्य प्रसादात् भगवत्प्रसादो यस्य प्रसादात् न गति कुतोऽपि यस्य प्रसादात् भगवत्प्रसादो यस्य प्रसादात् न गति कुतोऽपि ध्यायन्तु वांस्तस्य यस्य श्रीसन्ध्यां वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् ध्यायन्तु वांस्तस्य यस्य श्रीसन्ध्यां वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त राजे प्रसिद्धं नवनीतचोरं गोपाङ्गनानां चदुकुलचोरं राजे प्रसिद्धं नवनीतचोरं गोपाङ्गनानां चदुकुलचोरं राजे प्रसिद्धं नवनीतचोरं गोपाङ्गनानां चदुकुलचोरं नवनीतचोरं गोपाङ्गनानां अनेकजन्मार्जितपापचोरं चोराग्रगण्यं पुरुषं नमामि अनेकजन्मार्जितपापचोरं चोराग्रगण्यं पुरुषं नमामि क्षीराधिकाय हृदयस्य चोरं नवाम्बुदस्य मलकान्तिचोरं क्षीराधिकाय हृदयस्य चोरं नवाम्बुदस्य पदाश्रितानां च समस्तचोरं चोराग्रगण्यं पुरुषं नमामि पदाश्रितानां च समस्तचोरं चोराग्रगण्यं अकिञ्चनीकृत्य पदाश्रितं य करोति भिक्षुं पतिगेहहीनम् अकिञ्चनीकृत्य पदाश्रितं य करोति भिक्षुं केनाप्यहोभिषणचौर ईदृक् दृष्टश्रुतो वा न जगत्त्रयेऽपि केनाप्यहोभिषणचौर ईदृक् दृष्टश्रुतो वा यदीयनामा विहरात्यशेषं गिरिप्रसारान् अपि पापराशिन् यदीयनामा विहरात्यशेषं गिरिप्रसारान् अपि पापन् आश्चर्यरूपो ननु चौर ईदृक् दृष्टश्रुतो वा न मया कदापि आश्चर्यरूपो ननु चौर ईदृक् अनं च मानं च ततेन्द्रियाणि प्राणांश हृत्वा मम सर्वमेव पलायसे कुत्र धृतोऽद्यचोर त्वं भक्तिदाम्नासि मया निरुद्धा पलायसे कुत्र धृतोऽद्यचोर त्वं भक्तिदाम्नासि मया निरुद्धा जिनत्सि घोरं यमपाशबन्धं भिनत्सि भीमं भवपाशबन्धम् चिनत्सि सर्वस्य समस्तबन्धं नैवात्मनो भक्तकृतं तु बन्धं चिनत्सि सर्वस्य समस्तबन्धं मन्मानसे तामसराशि घोरे कारागृहे दुःखमाये निबद्धा मानसे तामसराशि घोरे लाभस्वहे चौरहरे चिराय स्वचौर्यदोषो चितमेव दण्डम् लाभस्वहे चौरहरे चिराय स्वचौर्यदोषो चितमेव दण्डं सहे कारागृहे वस सदा हृदये मदीये कारागृहे वस सदा मद्भक्तिपाशा दृढबन्धन निश्चलासन् भक्तिपाशा दृढबन्धन निश्चलासन् त्वां कृष्ण हे प्रलयकोटि शतान्तरेऽपि कृष्ण हे प्रलयकोटि शतान्तरेऽपि सर्वस्वचौरहृदयान् नहि मोचयामि व्रजे प्रसीदं नवनीतचौरं गोपाङ्गनानां च गोकुलचौरम् व्रजे प्रसीदं नवनीतचौरं गोपाङ्गनानां च गोकुलचौरम् अनेक जन्मजिता पापचौरं चौरग्रगण्यं पुरुषं नमामि हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जय राधा नीला माधव राधा नीला माधव श्री राधे जय गौरनिता 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 जय गौरनिता जय जगन्नाथ जय बलदेव जय सुभद्रमा जय सुदर्शन चक्र जय सीताराम 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 जय लक्ष्मण हनुमान जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय प्रभुपाद जय जय गुरुदेव 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 जय जय गुरुदेव निताय गौर हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल गौर हरि बोल
Kacharya Stota Shata Shishimas Divine Grace, Abharchana Rinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Bhaktivedanta Institute Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnu Pada Brahmhamsa Pratikacharya Stota Shata Shishimas Divine Grace, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Ki Jai. Nam Acharya Srila Haridasa Ki Jai. Premise Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shadvaita Dada Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Kiligavardhan Ki Jai. Shri Prajabhumi Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Navadvipa Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Purushottama Chaitra Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Shri Ayodhya Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Samavrita Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Purushottam Adhika Masa Ki Jai. Harinama Sankirtana Ki Jai. Nitai Gaura Premanande Hari. All glory to assembled devotees. All glory to assembled devotees. All glory to assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. All glory to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Hiranyakashi Purvachaha. Hiranyakashi Purvachaha. Silantankana Kalaye. Narsimha Bharado Narsimha. Ito Narsimha Bharado Narsimha. Yato yato yami tato Narsimha. Yami tato Narsimha. Bahir Narsimha Hridaye Narsimha. Bahir Narsimha Hridaye Narsimha. Tavakara Kamalavare Nagam Abhuta Shringa Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanu Bringam Keshavatirtha Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare. नरसिंहदेव जय प्रहलाद महाराज जय प्रहलाद महाराज जय प्रहलाद महाराज जय प्रहलाद महाराज जय जय प्रभुपाद प्रभुपाद जय प्रभुपाद जय जय प्रभुपाद जय नरसिंहदेव भगवान की जय महारानी की
My desire also grant me residence in the precious groves of Shiva and Anandam. Thus, within my vision, I shall always behold the beautiful paths of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me follow a careful dance of the Vraja. Please give me the privileged devotional service and make me your own maidservant. This very fallen lowly servant of Krishna prays. May I always swim in the love of Shri Radha and Govinda. Srimati Tulasi Maharani ki jai. There are 10 fences in the matter of chanting holy names that should be avoided, and they are as follows. 1. To blaspheme the devotees who are dedicated life for propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider the name of the demigods of Lord Shiva or Brahma to be equal to independent name Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the order of spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Veda literature or literature pursuing the Vedic version. 5. To consider the glory of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretation for the name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities and strength of chanting holy name. 8. To consider chanting Hare Krishna one of our special ritualistic activities, offering the Veda spiritual activities, karma, kanda. 9. To instruct a faithless person about glory holy name. 10. To not complete faith in chanting holy name and to maintain mature attachments in understanding so many instructions on this matter. It is also an plan to incentive our chanting. Every devotee who claims to Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 fences in order to quickly achieve desired success, Krishna Prema. Now let us for most humble obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They are just as I trees who can fulfill to everyone. They are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Shri Chaitanya Shikshastakam ki jai. Cheto Darpana Marchanam Bhava Mahadavagni Nirvapanam Shriya Kairava Chandrika Vitaranam Vidyavatu Jivanam Anandam Pudivardhanam Pratipadam Purnarmita Sadhanam Sarvatma Snapanam Paravijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatra Pita Niyamita Smaranena Kalaha Etadeshi Tava Kripa Bhagavam Mamapi Durudevami Desham Iha Janina Nurakaha Trinatapi Sunijena Tarorapi Saishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtanya Sadaharihi Na Thanam Na Janam Na Sundarim Kavitam Va Jagatisha Kamaye Mama Jamani Jamanishware Bhavata Bhaktir Haituki Toyi Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram Patitamam Vishame Pavam Buddha Kripaya Tava Pada Pankaja Stita Duri Satesham Vichintaya Nayanam Karata Shrudaraya Vadanam Gadgadurudaya Chira Pulakaya Nishtam Vapur Kada Tavanama Kahane Bhavishyati Yugaitam Nimishena Chakshusha Pravisha Itam Shunya Itam Jagat Sarvam Govinda Virahena Me Ashishava Padaratam Pinashtumam Adarsanam Marmhatam Karotuva Yathatata Vidhatu Lampato Madprana Natha Eva Naparaha
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Shri Chaitanya Shikshastakam ki jai.
Glory to Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years, and extinguishes the fire of conditional life of repeated birth and death. The Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is a life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss, and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings. And thus you have hundreds of millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness you enable us to easily approach you by holy names. But I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the strongest tree. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O my Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your closest devotional service, birth after birth. O Son of Maharaj, Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servant. Yet somehow or other I have fallen into this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me on one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love, flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up, and when will the hairs on my body stand on end at the recitation of your holy name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering the moment to be like Mr. Moore. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain. And I am feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna is my Lord, and he shall remain so, even if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. Shri Chaitanya Siksastakam Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vistaya Bhuti Smata Bhakti Smata Namaste Saraswati Devi Guru Shri Guru Pranama Prayers Ki Jai. Om Kanya Timirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksurunmitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Katamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitantam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamsha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Sarasate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paskakate Shatarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Saraswati Iti Namine Shiva Savanavi Devi Daya Kripabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Dayane Prabhave Namaha Madhur Ujjvala Premadya Shri Rupanuga Bhaktida Shri Gaura Garhana Shakti Vigrahaya Namastate Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Viruddha Papasiddhanta Dvantaharine Namo Gurajishwaraya Sakshat Vairagya Murtaye Vipralambara Sambodhe Padam Pujayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Sachitananda Namine Gaura Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate Gaurabhir Bhava Bhumestam Yudhesta Sajjana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Sri Jagannathaya Te Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaurachase Namaha Panchatatmatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakam Namami Bhakta Saktikam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Chaitam Suratur Pangur Mama Mandamatir Gati Matsarva Swaparam Bhujo Radha Madanamohano Divyadvindiranya Kalpudimadaha Shimad Ratnagara Simhasanastito
Srimad Radha Srila Govinda Devo Prishtadibihi Sevyamano Smarami Sriman Rasa Rasaram Devam Sivata Tatastita Karasangena Svane Gopir Gopinatha Shriyesnuna Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanustate Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Guru Pranama prayers ki jai Shri Brahma Samhita ki jai Ishvara Paramakrishna Satchitananda Vigraha Anadiraja Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam Chintamani Prakarsatma Sukalpa Viksha Laksha Videsu Sugavira Vipalayantam Lakshmi Sahasra Satasambrama Sehyamana Govinda Mahadi Purusham Tamaham Vajami Yenum Kanandam Aravinda Dalayataksham Parhavatam Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Kandarpa Koti Kamaniya Vishesha Shobham Govinda Mahadi Purusham Tamaham Vajami Alola Chandrakala Sabhanamalya Vamsi Ratnam Vidham Pranayakeli Kalavilasam Shyamam Chibangala Lalita Niyata Prakasam Govinda Mahadi Purusham Tamaham Vajami Angani Yasya Sakalan Puritimanti Pasyanti Panti Kavayanti Chiram Jaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadujvala Vigrahasra Govinda Mahadi Purusham Tamaham Vajami Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Anantarupam Madhyam Purana Purusham Navayogamcha Vedesha Durlabam Aturlabam Atma Bhakto Govinda Mahadi Purusham Tamaham Vajami Pantastu Koti Satavatsara Sampragamyo Vayor Kapi Manaso Munipungamanam Sopyasya Prapasimya Vichinti Tattve Govinda Mahadi Purusham Tamaham Vajami Ekopya Sora Chaitam Jagadanda Kotim Yaschakti Rasti Jagadanda Chayayadanta Andantarasta Paramanu Chayantarasam Govinda Mahadi Purusham Tamaham Vajami Yadbhava Bhavitadiyo Manujasta Teva Samprapya Rupa Mahimasanayana Pusha Suktayam Eva Nigama Pratitastuvanti Govinda Mahadi Purusham Tamaham Vajami Ananda Chimaya Sapati Bhavitabi Stapi Eva Jarupataya Kalabi Goloka Eva Nivasata Kilatma Bhutto Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Premanjana Churuta Bhakti Vilochanena Santaksa Deva Hridayeshu Vilokayanti Yam Shama Sundaram Achintya Guna Sarupam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ramadi Murtishu Kalanya Mena Tishtan Nanavataram Akaro Bhuvaneshu Kintu Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramam Pumam Yo Govinda Mahadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Krishna, who is known as Govinda, is the supreme Godhead. He has an eternal, spiritual, blissful body. He is the origin of all. He has no other origin, and he is the prime cause of all causes.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, the first progenitor who is tending the cows, yielding all desire, in abodes built with spiritual gems, surrounded by millions of purpose trees, always served with great reverence and affection by hundreds of thousands of Lakshmis or Gopis.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is adept in playing on his flute, with blooming eyes like lotus petals, with head decked with peacock feathers, with the figure of beauty tinged with the hue of blue clouds, and his unique loveliness charming millions of cupids.
Very nice. Very good.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, round whose neck is swinging the garland of flowers, beautified with the moon locket, whose two hands are adorned with the flute and jeweled ornaments, who always revels in pastimes of love, whose graceful threefold bending form of Shyam Sundara is eternally manifest.
Hari Bol. Very good.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, whose transcendental form is full of bliss, truth, substantiality, and is thus full of the most dazzling splendor. Each of the limbs of the transcendental figure possesses in himself the full fledged functions of all the organs and eternally sees, maintains, and manifests the infinite universes, both spiritual and mundane.
Very good. Okay.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is inaccessible to the Vedas, but obtainable by pure, unalloyed devotion of the soul, who is without a second, who is not a subject of to decay, is without a beginning, whose form is endless, who is the beginning and the eternal Purusha. Yet he is the person possessing the beauty of blooming youth.
Very good.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, only the tip of the toe of whose lotus feet is approached by the yogis who aspire after the transcendental and betake themselves to pranayama by drilling the respiration, or by the jnanis who try to find out the non-differentiated Brahman by the process of elimination of the mundane, extending over thousands of millions of years.
Very good.
He is undifferentiated entity, as there is no distinction between potency and the possessor thereof. In his work of creation of millions of worlds, his potency remains inseparable. All the universes exist in him, and he is present in his fullness in every one of the atoms that are scattered throughout the universe at one and the same time. Such is the primeval Lord whom I adore.
Haribol.
I adore the same Govinda, the primeval Lord, in whose praise men who are imbued with devotion sing the mantras, suktas told by the Vedas, by gaining their appropriate beauty, greatness, thrones, conveyances, and ornaments.
Very good.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, residing in his own realm, Goloka realm, Goloka with Radha, resembling his own spiritual figure, the embodiment of the ecstatic potency possessed of the 64 artistic activities in the company of her confidants, Sakis, embodiments of the extensions of her bodily form, permeated and vitalized by his ever blissful spiritual rasa.
Very nice.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is Shyamasundara, Krishna himself with inconceivable, innumerable attributes, whom the pure devotees see in their heart of hearts with the eye of devotion tinged with the salve of love.
Good.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who manifested himself personally as Krishna and the different avatars in the world, in the forms of Rama, Narasimha, Vamana, etc., as his subjective portion.
Very good. Glorification of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam 1.1.1. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We can repeat together. Chanmadasya yata niviyaditaratas chartes svavigya swarat tene brahma hidaya adhikavaye muyanti atsurayaha tejo vari madam yata vinimayo yatra chisarko misha dhamma svena sada nirasta kuhukam satyam param dhimahi. And someone can read.
Translation. O my Lord, Sri Krishna, son of Vasudeva, O all-pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. I meditate upon Lord Sri Krishna because he is the absolute truth and the primeval cause of all causes of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universes. He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations, and he is independent because there is no other cause behind him. It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge onto the heart of Brahmaji, the original living being. By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed in illusion as one is bewildered by the illusory representation of water seen in fire or land seen on water. Only because of him do the material universes, temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of nature, appear factual, although they are unreal. I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Sri Krishna, who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode, which is forever free from the illusory representations of the material world. I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth.
Very good. Thank you. Srimad Bhagavatam 1.1.2. We can recite together. Dharma Pushita Kaicho Vocha Paramo Nirmatsuranam Satam Vedyam Vastavam Atra Vastu Shivadam Tapo Trayon Mulanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite Kimva Purir Ishvaraha Sadyo Hide Avarudyate Cha Kriti Bihi Sususubis Takshanat. Someone would like to read. Go ahead.
Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated, this Bhagavata Purana propounds the highest truth, which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart. The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold miseries. This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity, is sufficient in itself for God realization. What is the need of any other scripture? As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam, by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established within his heart.
Very good. Thank you. And now, Srimad Bhagavatam 1.1.3. Nigama Kalpaturur Kalitam Phalam Sukhamukad Amrita Dravya Samyitam Pibata Bhagavatam Rasam Alayam Muhur Aho Raska Bhuvi Bhavukaha.
O expert and thoughtful man, wrote Srimad Bhagavatam, the mature fruit of the desire, Sri Vedic literatures, emanated from the lips of Sri Sukadeva Goswami. Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful, although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all, including liberated souls.
Very good. Thank you very much. Krishna is very pleased hearing glorification of himself. That's how you make spiritual advancement. Huh? Yeah, okay. Yeah. No, I don't have a sheet. Shishi Chirastakam. English translation. I offer my respectful obeisances to that foremost of thieves who is famous in Vraja or Vrindavan as the butter thief and who steals the gopis' clothes, and who, for those who take shelter of him, steals the sins which have accrued over many lifetimes. Next.
I offer my respectful obeisances to the foremost of thieves, who steals Srimati Radhika's heart, who steals the dark luster of a fresh rain cloud, and who steals all the sins and sufferings of those who take shelter of his feet.
He turns his surrendered devotees into paupers and wandering, homeless beggars. Alas, such a fearsome thief has never been seen or heard of in all the three worlds.
Mere utterance of his name purges one of a mountain of sins. Such an astonishingly wonderful thief I have never seen or heard of anywhere.
O thief, having stolen my wealth, my honor, my senses, my life, and my everything. Where can you run to? I have caught you with the rope of my devotion.
You cut the terrible noose of Yamaraja. You sever the dreadful noose of material existence, and you slash everyone's material bondage. But you are unable to cut the knot fastened by your own loving devotees.
Haribol.
O stealer of my everything, O thief, today I have imprisoned you in the miserable prison of my heart, which is very fearful due to the terrible darkness of my ignorance. And there for a very long time you will remain, receiving appropriate punishment for your crimes of thievery.
O Krishna, thief of my everything, the noose of my devotion, remaining forever tight. You will continue to reside in the prison house of my heart, because I will not release you for millions of aeons.
Haribol. Thank you. Here, take this. Okay, so today we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 14, verse number 6. Yayutanapada putro. Okay, we'll start over. Yachotanapada putro. Munina gitayar bhakta bhaka. Mityo kritvaiva murdinya angrim. Aruraha hare padam. Yaya, by which? Uttanapada, the king Uttanapada, of king Putra, son, Munina, by the sage, Gitaya, being sung, Arbaka, a child, Mrityo, of death, Kritva, placing, Eva, certain, Murdini, on the head, Angrim, feet, Aruroha, ascended, Hare, of the personality Godhead, Padam, to the abode. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. By hearing these topics from the sage Narada, the son of King Uttanapada, Dhruva, was enlightened regarding the personality of Godhead, and he ascended to the abode of the Lord, placing his feet over the head of death. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Someone would like to read. Go ahead.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes, please.
While quitting his body, Maharaj Dhruva, the son of King Uttanapada, was attended by personalities like Sunanda and others, who received him in the kingdom of God. He left this world at an early age, as a young boy, although he had attained the throne of his father and had several children of his own. Because he was due to quit this world, death was waiting for him. He did not care for death. However, and even with his present body, he boarded a spiritual aeroplane and went directly to the planet of Vishnu because of his association with the great sage Narada, who had spoken to him the narration of the pastimes of the Lord.
Very good. Thank you. Well, this is a great history. We're going to hear more about this later on in the Bhagavatam. Dhruva Maharaj was an exceptional young boy. He had his father, Uttanapada, who had several wives, and he was very favorable to one wife who was not the mother of Dhruva Maharaj. There was another wife that was the mother of Dhruva Maharaj. And one day when Dhruva was playing on the lap of his father, Uttanapada, the mother, or his let's say his stepmother, took him off the lap of the father and said, "You don't have a right to play on his lap because my son has to play on his lap." So the father went along with that wife, and Dhruva was really hurt. So he went hurt. I mean, not physically, but mentally. So he goes to see his mother and explains what happened. And he said, "This is not right. Can you do something?" And she said, "No. Your father has a special liking for this wife. I can't do anything." And he said, "Well, then what should I do? I can't stand this." Now, he's a young boy, very, very young, maybe 5 years old. But he's born in a Kshatriya family. So he had that Kshatriya, let's say, bravery and chivalry and that whole mindset. And he wants to get revenge. Right? So he says, "Well, what can I do? I can't stand this." So the mother said, then you should go into the forest and find Krishna or find Vishnu. So he said, "Okay, I'll do it." He's only 5 years old. So he goes by himself into the forest and he starts asking the trees and the animals and so forth, "Where is this Vishnu?" Well, as time goes on, Narada Muni hears about this young boy, and he appears before him and he says, what are you doing in the forest like this? It's dangerous here." He said, "Well, I'm not afraid." He said, "But why don't you just go home and be protected by your mother?" He said, "Why don't you just go away and leave me alone? I have a purpose. I want to find Lord Vishnu." So Narada Muni is very impressed by his adamancy and his spunk, as you say. You know, like he's a Kshatriya, although he's only 5 years old. Still has that Kshatriya willpower. So then Narada Muni says, "Well, if you want to see the Lord," then he gives him a 6-point process by which he'll be able to see the Lord. But it's severe tapasya. We'll explain this in much more detail later on. But he goes through that process and he becomes so powerful because, he, like in the first process, he can only eat once a day. In the second process, he can only now he can't eat regular food. He can only eat like leaves and so forth. So it gets progressively more and more severe till he has to stop breathing. And he's standing on one leg only. So when that happens, he sort of bends over, and the whole universe starts to move or shake, and it's extremely dangerous. he developed so much mystical power by his tapasya. So at that point, Lord Vishnu appears, and when he sees Lord Vishnu, I mean, he's shocked. The Lord is so beautiful and so appealing. And basically, he sort of forgets what his real purpose was, because he becomes purified by seeing the Lord Vishnu. But Lord Vishnu, basically, at one point he says, what do you want? And the boy said, well, I wanted pieces of broken glass, but now I have found a diamond. So basically what he's saying is that I had this petty desire for revenge, but now seeing you, I've become completely purified of that type of thought, and I'm satisfied just by seeing you, my Lord. So that's a famous statement in the history of the Vedas. But Lord Vishnu says, okay, but no, I'm going to make you king of the, and you're going to be a greater king than your father. Well, Uttanapada is almost like the king of the whole universe. But, so anyway, Dhruva Maharaj is blessed by the Lord. He becomes a greater king than his father. And eventually, he is going to leave his body. And he's not afraid at all. And as it says here, because he was due to quit this world, death was waiting for him. He did not care for death, however. And even with his present body, he boarded a spiritual airplane and went directly to the planet of Vishnu because of his association with the great sage Narada, who had spoken to him the narration of the pastimes of the Lord. Well, what can we understand about this? If you hear the narrations of the pastimes of the Lord from a genuine devotee, like Narada, then you'll be liberated from the cycle of birth and death. That's how powerful these pastimes of the Lord are. And we can see that not so many people are into this, even some of our devotees. But if you take the time and let's say energy to make a certain period of your day hearing the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, it is the real purpose of life, because it liberates you from the cycle of birth and death. So, and you're no longer afraid of death, because you know, and he gets on this spiritual airplane in his material body, but his material body has become completely spiritualized by complete immersion in transcendental activities, hearing and chanting, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, and he goes back to Godhead. Okay, so now we're going to hear a lot more about this later on, in a lot more details. And so that's Dhruva Maharaj. All right, so we'll go to text number 7. Atacha piti hasoyam Shruto me varnita pura Brahmana deva devena Devanam anuprichatam Ata. Now. Atra. In this matter. Api. Also. Itihasa. History. Ayam. This. Shruta. Heard. May. By me. Varnita. Described. Pura. Years ago. Brahmana. By Brahma. Deva Devena. The foremost of the demigods. Devanam. By the demigods. Anaprichatam. Asking. Translation. This history of the fight between the Lord as a boar and the demon Hiranyaksha was heard by me in a year long ago, as it was described by the foremost of the demigods, Brahma, when he was questioned by the other demigods. So you see, these histories are being recited over and over again by all these great personalities, and then they never get tired hearing about them. And the more they hear about them, the more information becomes revealed, right? So this is the reason why devotees never get satisfied by hearing the pastimes of the Lord, because there's more and more details as time goes on, and it's exciting. It's invigorating when you have a subject matter that never gets old, never gets hackneyed. That's a nice word, hackneyed. I mean, in other words, you get tired of it. Huh? Yeah. Right. And you get excited. You get vitalized, and it's like getting an inoculation of some kind of a drug that gives you more energy, right? And not that there's any drug involved, but you get the idea. So these histories are being recited over and over again in the material world and the spiritual world, and devotees are excited hearing them. Okay. So now we're going to start a new part of the Bhagavatam. This is all about the pregnancy of Diti in the evening. So you have Kashyapa Muni, who has 13 wives, and his first wife is Aditi, and she becomes the mother of the Devatas. And his second wife is Diti, who becomes the mother of demons. Now, why did that happen? We're going to hear about the, let's call it, shameful, lusty desire of Diti. But there's always a silver lining even in the worst situation, as they say in English. So this is a wonderful pastime. Why? Because it explains in real depth the relationship, or the proper and improper relationship between a man and a woman. Just like nowadays, they teach kids in elementary school about sex. Is that right, Prabhu?
At least in elementary, not in kindergarten, but fourth.
What?
Not in kindergarten, Maharaj, but fourth and fifth grade they get to.
Okay. Yes, fourth and fifth grade.
Yeah. No, for girls, it's fourth grade.
What they're teaching. What? Go ahead.
For girls, they start from fourth grade. For boys, it starts from fifth grade.
Okay. Thank you for telling me that. So, but Bhagavatam is going to explain real, let's call it, real relationship of men and women. What is the proper relationship? What is the improper relationship? In the next, in this whole chapter 14. You don't have to go and learn about these things from the mundane speculators like Freud and the way they teach these things in schools. You can learn it right here in Bhagavatam in the proper way and in a transcendental way. Right? So some people would say, "Oh, don't read all this stuff. It's and kids shouldn't hear this," but it's not true. They're forcing kids to hear these things when they're in 4th grade, right? Nowadays. So better they hear it through Bhagavatam than through the speculators. Right? Anyway, it says, Diti dakshayani shatar maricham kashyapam patim apatya kama chakame sanyayam rich chayardita diti Dakshayani, the daughter of Daksha. Shata, O Vidura. Marikam, Maricham, okay, the son of Marichi. Kashyapam, Kashyapa. Patim, her husband. Apatyakama, desirous of having a child. Chakame, longed for. Sanyayam, in the evening. Ritsaya, by sex desires. Ardita, distressed. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Diti, daughter of Daksha, being afflicted with sex desire, begged her husband, Kashyapa, the son of Marichi, to have intercourse with her in the evening in order to beget a child. Okay. Text 9, now we'll go a little quicker. We'll just read the English. The sun was setting, and the sage was sitting in trance after offering oblations to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, whose tongue is the sacrificial fire. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Fire is considered to be the tongue of the Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, and oblations of grains and clarified butter offered to the fire are thus accepted by Him. That is the principle of all sacrifices, of which Lord Vishnu is the master. In other words, the satisfaction of Lord Vishnu includes the satisfaction of all demigods and other living beings. Now, this is misunderstood by modern pundits. They want to worship all the different demigods and chant their mantras and sing songs glorifying them. It's all unnecessary. If you worship Lord Vishnu properly, then it includes the satisfaction of all demigods and other living beings. Not only that, but it precludes the possibility of making mistakes in the worship of individual demigods. Now, what does that mean exactly? Well, demigods are, let's say, they can go in two ways. One way is you worship a demigod in order to have Krishna or Vishnu as your prime lord. Okay, so then the demigod acts like a guru and helps you come closer to Vishnu. Then, if you worship a demigod, not to come to Vishnu or Krishna, but to have material benedictions, then whatever the blessing the demigod gives you becomes a very negative thing and keeps you entangled in the material cycle of birth and death. So you have to be careful what you do. The demigods will go both ways. Either they'll help you come closer to Krishna, or they'll help you to go away from Krishna. Now, most people don't understand that, and therefore you see so many pundits doing so many types of karma kanda sacrifices for material benefits. That's all extremely negative. It's going to keep people in the cycle of birth and death. And even if they get some material benefits, it only prolongs their stay in the material world. Now, are the pundits explaining this? What do you say? You ever hear this explanation by pundits? No. Why? Because that's the way they make money. And that's what people want. They want materialistic benefits through rituals. And then, of course, let me read this again one more time. I read this the other day, but we'll read it again. In the 18th chapter, verse number 5. It says, Yagya dana tapa karma natyajyam karyam evatot yagyo danam tapaschaiva pavanani manisinam. This is 18th chapter, 5th verse. Acts of charity, acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance are not to be given up. They must be performed. Indeed, sacrifice, charity, and penance purify even the great souls. So, yagya dana tapas. The yogis should perform acts for advancement of human society. There are many purificatory processes for advancing a human being to spiritual life. Okay, so I'm not going to read that whole purport. Then the next verse says, all these activities should be performed without attachment or any expectation of result. They should be performed as a matter of duty, O son of Prita. That is my final opinion. So here we have Krishna, who's emphatically saying, look, you perform these ritual sacrifices, that's fine. But if you expect to get something material out of it, that is not okay. And they should all be performed without attachment or any expectation of result. Now, is that what's going on today? What do you think? There's so many pundits, they're doing so many pujas.
Both the person seeking the sacrifice as well as the person performing the sacrifice, both have some material desires.
Yeah. You see how far away they've gone from pure Krishna consciousness. This is a statement directly by God himself, by Krishna himself. Chapter 18, verse number 6. And then someone can read the purport.
Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Although all sacrifices are purifying, one should not expect any result by such performances.
In other words, any material result. Go ahead.
In other words, all sacrifices which are meant for material advancement in life should be given up. But sacrifices that purify one's existence and elevate one to the spiritual plane should not be stopped. Everything that leads to Krishna consciousness must be encouraged. In the Srimad Bhagavatam also, it is said that any activity which leads to devotional service to the Lord should be accepted. That is the highest criterion of religion. A devotee of the Lord should accept any kind of work, sacrifice, or charity which will help him in the discharge of devotional service to the Lord.
This is the highest criterion of religion. Performing all kinds of sacrifices to please the Lord, not to please yourself. You see, you can see how far the Hindus have deviated from Sanatana Dharma, and that's why there's so many problems. Right? It's sad. It's very, very sad. But if you're trying to explain this to people, they get all upset. Even your own parents, you tell them, well, Mom, this Durga worship is not really necessary. They'll freak out. They say, what? What are you saying? All our ancestors have been doing this. You see, so it's a very sad situation. And you see how Prabhupada has gone to made a great effort to explain what is the truth, and also to reveal what is not the truth. Okay, so now where were we? We were at Canto 3, Chapter 14. Was it verse number 9?
9 is completed.
Yeah. So someone can read. Anyone?
In that place, the beautiful deity expressed her
Is that
desire.
verse number 9? 10. Okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
In that place, the beautiful deity expressed her desire. O Lord, one Cupid is taking his arrows and distressing me forcibly.
Cupid is taking his arrows.
Cupid is taking his arrows and distressing me forcibly as a mad elephant topbles a banana tree.
It's a little funny.
Purport. Beautiful deity, seeing her husband absorbed in trance, began to speak loudly, not attempting to attract him by bodily expressions. She frankly said that her whole body was distressed by sex desire because of her husband's presence, just as a banana tree is troubled by a mad elephant. It was not natural for her to agitate her husband when he was in trance, but she could not control her strong sexual appetite. Her sex desire was like a mad elephant, and therefore it was the prime duty of her husband to give her all protection by fulfilling her desire.
So, what we see here is lust that has become uncontrollable. That happens to a lot of people. It's not only women, it happens to men also. Right? That's why it's so important to practice Krishna consciousness seriously. Because when you get into a situation like this, it's only going to be trouble. It's not going to be anything good. Although the person who's troubled by this lust thinks it's going to be good, it's going to relieve their extreme desire. No, it only aggravates that desire, makes it worse. Right? It doesn't make it better. So, how do we know that? Let's look at things in a proper way. Let's say someone has, let's say, strong desires for sense gratification. Those desires are never fully satisfied. How do we know that? Because people will go on and on, even after so much sense gratification, they'll still want to have more and more. They can't stop. It's like a disease. it's like scratching. You have some itch, so you scratch, and then it feels a little okay. The itch goes away. Then it comes back again. And then the next time you're scratching even harder. You see. So this lusty behavior never has an end to it. And it just puts people into more and more difficulty. Okay, so that means that the satisfaction one feels from engaging in lusty behavior is not really satisfaction. If it really satisfied a person, they wouldn't want to keep doing it over and over again. But no, they engage in those types of activities, and then the next day they want to do it again, and then again, and then again. And eventually it ruins relationships, and it's not really beneficial in any way, other than destroying the purity of one's spiritual activities. Okay, so you read the whole purport, right? Yeah. So it says here that it was not natural for her to agitate her husband when he was in trance, but she could not control her strong sexual appetite. Her sex desire was like a mad elephant, and therefore it was the prime duty of her husband to give her all protection by fulfilling her desire. Well, this is a one-sided explanation here. She's not. See, when people engage in these types of activity, they don't carefully see what the result will be. The result is that because the time that she had this overwhelming desire and the way that she insisted on being satisfied by her husband, it led to the child being, her two children, being demons. So there's a science of how to procreate that's explained here. It's going to be explained now in depth. And if we don't follow the proper process, then you end up having demoniac children that can't focus their mind on Krishna. They're always fidgeting and can't have any self-control and getting into trouble. And we see it today. You have children that get guns and go kill people today. See? Because the parents, the moment of procreation, both the husband and wife should be in spiritual consciousness. Then you have a saintly child. If they're both in lust, or if one is in lust, then you're going to get a demon as a child. They won't be able to control themselves. They'll be always getting into trouble. So it says, her sex desire was like a mad elephant. A mad elephant? That's the most dangerous thing in the world, right? And therefore, it was the prime duty of her husband to give her all protection by fulfilling her desire. Well, that's her point of view. That's not the spiritual point of view. That's selfishness, right? And we see that people become crazy like that sometimes, not only men, not only women, but men also. And they insist on doing something even though they know it's wrong, because they've lost control of their mind. Okay, text 11. Let's do that and then we'll stop. Anybody?
Translation. Therefore, you should be kind towards me by showing me complete mercy. I desire to have sons, and I am much distressed by seeing the opulence of my co-wives. By performing this act, you will become happy. Purport.
That's called misinformation right there. Go ahead.
In Bhagavad Gita, sexual intercourse of begetting children is accepted as righteous. A person sexually inclined by simple sense gratification, however, is unrighteous. Unrighteous. In Diti's appeal to her husband for sex, it was not exactly that she was afflicted by sex desires, but she desired sons. Since she had no sons, she felt poorer than her co-wives. Therefore, Kashyapa was supposed to satisfy his bona fide wife.
Well, okay, that's true, but the problem is that she's forcing him to do this act at the wrong time. Everything has its time. Even having procreating, and there's a proper way and an improper way. Now, because of her lustiness, she's going to force him to do something that even he knows is not right. But he's spiritually weak. Like Vidura, if some woman came up to him and tried to convince him to do something like this, he would say no. And no way we're going to do anything like this. Because he's a very powerful spiritual person. Apparently, Kashyapa Muni was not as spiritually advanced as Vidura. Therefore, he succumbed. And what is the result? You have Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu that are born. There's two sons of Diti. All right, we'll stop right there. I mean, you can read yourself at home, and then we'll continue discussing this. But I'm telling you, this is going to go very deeply into the relationship of man and woman, and what is correct and what is incorrect as far as their relationship goes. We're very fortunate to have Srimad Bhagavatam with Srila Prabhupada's purports to explain all these things. Are there any questions?
So this explains the dharma aviruddha kama.
Huh?
Because Lord says in the 7th chapter that the lust which is not against dharma is okay, but in this case, this is lust against dharma.
Yeah, in other words, in the Bhagavad Gita, that I am sex desire. I am sex that, in other words, according to the principles of spiritual life. That is acceptable. But sex just for satisfying lusty desire, that is actually sinful. And the result is the children that are born with that type of consciousness of the mother and father, they become demons. I mean, Krishna is the one who's choosing the soul that goes into that will become a child in the family. So, if there are, if the consciousness of the husband and wife are completely into sense gratification, they'll have demoniac children. Now, those children can be rectified through Krishna consciousness, but it's much better to do things correctly and not have to go through that extra effort to purify the children. You see, so this is science. This is real science. It has nothing to do with Freud and all the nonsense they're teaching in schools to these kids about sex. Right? So now you see the value of hearing Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Now you can get the real knowledge of how to do things properly, even the most intimate things that most people think they know something about. They don't. They don't understand anything.
So one other dimension is that in this case, Diti wanted to have children, but not to for the right reasons also, right? It's mainly because of the ego or the.
She wanted to have children. There's 13 wives.
Correct.
She's the only wife that doesn't have a child yet. So she wanted to have a child.
Is that desire? I mean, I think Srila Prabhupada says that it's for the propagation of Krishna conscious children. Then you can have children, but not for the purpose of just having, because I need to prove. I mean, as a mother, obviously every mother needs.
I need to come up to par with my sisters.
Yeah. So I think that there is also.
No, this is what happens when a person loses control of themselves. They make major mistakes, and then afterward, she's going to really. I mean, it's a very wonderful story. She's going to really regret what happened, and now she asks her husband, "What can I do to correct this?" She has two sons, Hiranya and Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, the first demons in the material world, right? And they're her sons, right? So. But there's a saving grace. There's a silver lining in this whole story. We'll get to it as we go through the pages. Okay, any other questions? What would we do without Prabhupada's purports?
This may be that Adam and Eve example.
What?
It's like the Adam and Eve example that the Christians talk about, where
Adam and Eve.
Yeah, where I mean, I'm not equating completely, but this is that first beginning of the demoniac child.
Yeah.
Against the wish of the Lord, isn't it?
Well, because okay, let's just one more thing, and then we'll stop. In the third chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Near the end, it says that the ultimate enemy of the living being is kama, krodha. What does it say? Yeah. So, third chapter, verse number 37. Kama esa krodha esa rajaguna samudbhava. Mahasana Mahapapma Vidi Enam Ihavairinam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "It is lust only, Arjuna, which is born of contact with the material mode of passion, and later transformed into wrath, meaning anger, and which is the all-devouring sinful enemy of this world." So you see, this is a big subject. It requires patience to understand it, and now we have a real historical record of Diti, as opposed to Aditi, her sister, who followed all the rules and regulations of proper behavior, and her sister who did not, and it ended up a disaster for her. But there's a silver lining also. So we'll discuss all this starting tomorrow. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma. Bando mui savadana mate. Bando mui savadana mate. Jahara prasade bai e baba toriya jai. Krishna prapti hoy jahar hoite. Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitite Koriya Kya. और ना खोरी हो माने आशा. श्री गुरु चरणे रति ऐसे उतापा गति. जे प्रसादे पूरे सर्वा आशा. चक्षुदान दिलो जे जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से. दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशितो. प्रेमा भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाश जाते. वेद गाय जहाँ रचरितो. श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु आदाम जनार बंधु. लोके नाथ लोके रजीवना. हा हा प्रभु करो दया देहो मोरे पदा छाया. Ebe jas goshok tribuvana. Srila Prabhupada Patita Pavana. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. I bow down to his lotus feet with awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean, but there is could obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness. Attachment to his lotus feet is a perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him, ecstatic prema emanates. By him, ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master, ocean mercy, the friend of the poor and the Lord of master devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame spread all over the three worlds. We take shelter of your lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.